out. Excellent. All right. Well, here we go. My name is Nicole Murphy. This is, I can't believe it, but February 8th. It's our PUC Career Convo on Creative Arts Careers webinar. And we're so thankful to have you all joining us. It's 5:01 on the nose, so we're going to hit the ground running. Virtual housekeeping. I kick off every webinar. This is our third webinar in our 10-week series. And bottom line, I like to start with gratitude. When it comes to today, y'all had a day of school or work or just life in general. That on top of family, extracurriculars, being able to breathe. We have a panelist, we have a group of panelists who are joining us today to share their story, and they volunteered their time to be here today. So I'd just like to say an extra thank you up front to our wonderful expert panelists. Thank you for being here today. As you heard when you logged in, this webinar is being recorded. We have an opportunity for you to ask questions. You can put them in the chat, and also towards the end, throughout the webinar, put them in the chat if anything comes up. And then at the end, we have a special Q&A portion that will address those those questions. And also during that section of the presentation, you could come off Zoom and just ask verbally. So we'll figure it out together. At the very end, there's a feedback survey. We really, really value your input, and we ask that you take 3 minutes to just share what you loved, what we can improve on, and we want to know what you think. Because again, this is the third week of our 10-week survey, and we get better by your feedback. So thank you. Our introductions. This is our PUC team. We've got a bunch of PUC people on board who are here to support. And I just want to let you know, my name's Nicole. We've got Brando. I think we've got Kristen, Diana, Brandy. If you just give a wave if you're on here, just to say hello. Thank you so much for being here, guys. And we've got an amazing team. So if there's anything you need, even after today, if you put it in the chat, we have clinical counseling, PUC alumni support. If there's anything you need that you'd like to share with regards to that, put it in the chat and we can address it after. All right, so thanks. Let's jump on in. This is that expert panelist. So I'd like to just say we've got Miss Katie Baldwin, who's the senior designer of men's sweaters at Vince. If you could just say hello, Katie, give a wave. Thank you for being here. Then we've got Mr. Mark, is it Farquhar? Am I saying that correctly?
Sorry, yeah, Farquhar. Yeah, it's perfect.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you for being here. He's professor and character animator at CSUN. That's Cal State University Northridge. If we have any middle schoolers on, sometimes they don't know the difference, and we're all learning together between saying the CSUN and knowing it's actually Northridge. And then we've got Miss Jen Vaughn, department chair at LACC, Los Angeles City College in Cinema and TV. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone.
Excellent. So let's get going. So why do we have these convos? We put these together. We used to have in-person webinars, and then pandemic hits, and we realized that we were able to get more panelists and make it more accessible by not having everyone take a bus to one location and get together in different rooms, but just by piping it out like this. So we will put this together so that you can hear directly from experts in the field. You can identify the required education and training. What does it take to actually get there? Learn the realities of these industries. It sounds really cool to be in cinema and TV, but what does it take to actually get there? As well as learn some tips. What could you do possibly now in middle school, high school, or if we have any PUC alumni, college? What can you do now to become a more competitive applicant? How do you get the edge? What can we learn today that will give you the edge over the competition? So with that being started, one of my favorite parts of this career combos piece isn't just about what do you do, but how did you get there? You know, it's almost paralyzing, as I mentioned, when someone tells a student, like, you can be anything, it's like anything in the whole universe. Like, what do I do with that? So I like to start off with asking our panelists we've got students on here that can range anywhere from like 6th to 12th grade. That's our majority of our audience. When you were in high school, let's just start with that. What did you want to be and how did you get to where you are today? About a 5-minute overview. And we'll kick it off just the way I have the names on here with Miss Katie Baldwin. Thank you for being here, Katie.
You are so welcome, Nicole. I love being here with you all. And listen, this is the greatest story to tell. I had such fun beginning. I knew that I wanted to do fashion design early on. I started my sketchbook when I was 8 years old. I started merchandising when I was a very young little soul, like sketching my designs out. My mom used to work for TWA, so airlines. And when she came back every trip, she would bring me either a magazine or something of a sort to kind of bring to my story. And listen, I understood that fashion was the way to go when I was very, very young, but I didn't know which way, which was interesting. I was sketching every other day. However, I wanted to understand the business side of it. And when I was able to understand the business side of it, I think the sketching came in a little bit easier to me because it was like I understood creativity and how I wanted to kind of translate designs to be marketable. I don't know. It started early for me and it was a little bit bizarre, but I ran with it. And when I did run with it, it felt so natural to me. I mean, I was doing Saturday classes when I was, in high school at FIT, and I was sketching and I was just going to sewing classes and really just taking it all in. I don't know if it came to me or I came to it, but it really, really like resonated with me. And then when I finally got to college, I wanted to definitely specialize in menswear. And that's where I went. I went with something that I went with my heart. I wanted it to be unique in a market that just resonated with me. And then I took it a step further and then I went into sweaters and knitwear design. And with that said, it was a big, extreme, idea that I never would have ever fathomed. And when I took it on, it was great. I learned with the best. I met with so many mentors that just guided me and really pushed me forward to understand knitwear, understand everything about it. And I never looked back, to be honest with you. I had a bunch of years in New York. I had a lot of history in New York. And then now for the past 3.5 years, I'm on the West Coast and I couldn't be happier. I really love the vibe here. And with that said, the career story, I'm at a company that I know and love now, and we have a upward growth, and I'm psyched.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing, Katie. Mr. Mark Farquhar, if you'd like to take it next, the same question. What's your story? How'd you figure out what you're doing today?
Okay, there's a few things here. I think one thing is I'm probably the oldest person here, so it was a little different when I was getting started. I grew up in Michigan, and there weren't the same kind of resources. So you just didn't see people going into animation when I was in elementary school and high school. I didn't think it was even possible to do that kind of thing. And finding books, getting time on a computer was a really big deal. So it was just a really different time. And so today you guys have a huge advantage in that you have all these resources at your fingertips. So I got started, I always liked drawing. I can't remember not enjoying drawing and feeling like it was something that, I liked doing and I felt like I was good at. I remember making flip books, but it wasn't clear that I was going to go into animation. That's something that I kind of figured out. And a part of it was just, the way things were working. I went to state school at Michigan State when I was in college, I started taking some classes at a community college because they had some computers that they got from some of the car companies invested in the community college. So you couldn't get buying your own computer that had software was, it was just too cost prohibitive. I think that the first job that I got, I worked on a computer that cost $50,000, and then the software is another 60 or 70. And this probably isn't. The computer had 20 megabytes of hard drive, so you couldn't actually do anything on the computer. You could create an image, record it on tape, and then delete it and create a new image, because there was just no room to store. So 10 megabytes is smaller than, you know, most of the images or the audio that you guys have on your phone, right? I mean, we're talking gigabytes now. But that was really expensive software. So you can see how hard it was to get onto equipment. Because I was able to get onto some equipment, I got a job in Detroit working in a small company doing everything, you know, doing 3D, doing storyboards, 2D, and worked at you know, the biggest thing that was like motion graphics. You know, the biggest things that we would do would be like titles for at that time the Pistons were, you know, were like champions like 4 or 5 times, so they were a really big deal. So that would be like the biggest kind of thing. But I wanted to get into film and animation, and didn't really have a clear way to do it. There was no internet at that time. I mean, technically there was, but you know, only people at universities would be using the internet. It wasn't something that everybody had access to the internet. So I started, you know, I did, I think, okay, I guess one of the, why did I want to get into it? I saw movies too, like Tron, the original Tron, when I was a kid, really made me want, you know, I thought animation was cool. And then I got a chance to do some of this stuff. And then when the first Jurassic Park came out, I knew that like that's the kind of thing I wanted to work on. And so I was working at the time, but I was working on, you know, these titles and stuff like that. So I actually went to grad school at USC, which got me to Los Angeles. So I came to USC, I think it was '93, just in time for the earthquake. I got here, and then just a few months later, there was this huge earthquake at Northridge, actually. So I came out here, and within a few months, there was somebody that had been an intern at my company in Detroit was out here working. He called me up. He actually called my parents back in Michigan. I got in connection, you know, I got connected with him, and he helped me get into Warner Brothers. So when I was in grad school, I started working. So I went and really learned animation on the job. I went to grad school, but they didn't really teach the mechanics of animation. I really learned it, and animation's really like a apprentice kind of thing. You do really need to like learn it on the job, and it, you know, you're learning it from people that already know it. And today there's all kinds of great programs and opportunities. You can get software. All of you guys that have a computer that you're watching right now can download software and use the same software that professionals are using. In the past, you'd have to, you know, beg someone to get on in the middle of the night, you know, to work on stuff. I mean, literally, it was really, really hard to get access. But I started working. I knew I wanted to get into the character animation. I went from job to job, but I worked at Warner Brothers. Then I started at like Warner Feature. I moved into, you know, I don't actually remember all the order, but I think it was Pixar, and then I came back down to DreamWorks, and then Disney, and then Sony, and then I started teaching about 10-12 years ago, full time at Northridge, and that's what I've been doing. And I've been doing some projects. I worked on a documentary with a survivor of the atomic bomb. His documentary filmmaker that his house was actually at the very base of where the bomb exploded, and so he's been really leading that community and creating documentaries. And so I helped with some reconstructions for a documentary that he made. Okay, this is all about me. So I guess the other thing too is I would like to, and yeah, I don't want to take up too much time here, but I would like to talk about, you know, resources, and, you know, there's a lot of ways that you guys, if you are interested in this, there's all kinds of things that you can do like right now. You know, you don't have to wait for someone to give you permission to see if it's something you like to do. You know, there's just so
Terrific. Yeah, and Mark, you know what I'd love to do when we're going to talk about a little bit what they can do to get the edge. If we want, even after offline, we could get some of those resources. And as long as you're on this webinar, I have your email address, so I can send the direct link to some of those resources. Because I mean, that sounds amazing that you can get access directly to this animation software. That's just incredible.
Yeah, and actually, my wife is an animator, animation director. Right now, she's been teaching at Art Center, so we set up a website that has a bunch of this is where you can find job sites, stuff like that, because we're having to talk to our students about it all the time. So I can forward some of that stuff to you when we
That'd
get
be
to that
great.
part. Sure.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you. And last but definitely not least, we've got Ms. Jen Vaughn. Thank you. Please tell us your story, Jen.
Hi, I'm happy to share my origin story. It actually begins in high school. So if anyone here on the call is listening to my story and what I'm saying resonates with what you're experiencing right now, give me a thumbs up, give me a reaction so that I know that what I'm saying might be, right along the lines of what you're thinking and feeling these days. When I was about to enter my senior year in high school, my grades were just borderline if I could get into college or not, based on my SATs. So I was going around looking at schools, and I was looking at all these different programs in health, and I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and I was really stressed about getting good enough grades to get into college. That was really stressful going into senior year. And it turns out my senior year of high school, we had a class that combined economics and government with video production. And seeing how econ and government were like the two most boring topics to me, I thought, all right, let's try this video camp. It might be kind of fun. And I totally loved it. I completely fell in love. It changed the entire way I approached high school. I was all of a sudden a straight A student. I got a 4.0 my senior year and was totally thriving. But I was still applying to colleges with health degrees and looking for anywhere I could go to get into a nursing program. And I had a conversation with someone that I still remember this day as being very pivotal. And they asked me, oh, well, where are you applying to school? And I told them where I wanted to go. And they said, well, what makes you want to go into nursing? I said, well, if I major in nursing and minor in Spanish, there's always going to be lots of jobs available. And they thought, oh, they said, well, that's a good reason. And then they asked me, have you ever thought about doing something you love? And I was like, what? Do something I love for a living? Wait, no, that hadn't really occurred to me. I was just thinking about getting a job, getting paid, getting money, taking the steps towards whatever was the next step in my life. And I completely pivoted. I realized I was having so much fun learning about video production, learning how to produce, how to tell stories, how to edit. And I completely changed the college that I was applying for. I was no longer looking at health programs. I applied to San Francisco State. It was pretty much the only college that accepted me. I was too late to get into their broadcasting program, so I went in undeclared, and I went in with that same energy of, I'm just going to kick butt and do as good as I can in these classes. Got really great grades, so I got accepted into their broadcasting program, and really never looked back or doubted my career change ever since. So at San Francisco State, we actually have two programs. Broadcasting and cinema are in different programs. And I was in the broadcasting program, which was really right up my alley because I love going to concerts. I love live music. I went to an Oakland Raiders game, and all of a sudden I became a football fan and fell into loving live sports. So it really was a place where I could thrive and learn how to make live TV right there in our studios in San Francisco State. So I was having so much fun in undergrad that I stuck around for grad school. And then I started teaching just, one class here and there in the studio. But the great part about teaching that class was that as I stayed at San Francisco State to become a lecturer, I was also getting into the business. Now, getting into the business in TV and film, there is no one path. There are so many different paths you can take. So I started off just hustling, making videos whenever I could, whether it was filming, someone's friend's bat mitzvah or baby shower, or somebody says, hey, can you do a video about this marketing software, which I had no idea what the software is for. I said, sure, I can do it. Sure, I can do it. And eventually I started charging a little more and charging a little more for my work. And I was just working 3 jobs all the time, whether it was teaching, producing, editing, doing whatever I could to keep building my reel, building my network, and really figuring out which area of production I enjoyed the most. And as I was teaching at San Francisco State, this was the same time that Pac-12 networks opened. And if you're familiar with Pac-12 networks, they're essentially all of the sort of top schools on the West Coast are in one network. So USC, UCLA, Stanford, Cal Berkeley, and all the way up to Washington and Utah and Colorado. And they had their own network open up. And I started to see some of my students getting jobs there. So I was like, wait, how'd you get that job at Pac-12 Network? And one of my students said, oh, I got it through this guy. And I was like, hey, Chris, hook me up with a job at Pac-12 Networks. And he hooked me up with his boss. And I thought I was going in to interview and sell my skills. And the boss was like, yeah, when can you start? So I got my first big break into Pac-12 Networks by who I knew. And that's one of the most important things about this industry. It's all about growing your network and never knowing what connection might lead you to the next connection and the next connection. So I was really happy in San Francisco and I had a really great career, but I was always itching to come to LA. But it's really daunting to just leave your career behind, come to LA and try to break into the business without any connections. So I actually found out about the job at Los Angeles City College through someone I knew at San Francisco State. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll just apply on a whim. Maybe it'll make my boss here want to give me more money so I can stay. And when I told my boss that I was applying for the job, they were so supportive. They're like, you should totally go for it. You'll be great at it. Let me know what I can do to help you. And I was like, oh, well, okay, I guess I better go for it. So I made the big leap. And actually, when I interviewed for the job, I did it from San Francisco over Skype. I wasn't willing to just come down all the way to LA and interview for one day. And I blew them away. My interview was like obviously better than the rest, even through this little medium that we are so used to now. And back in 2013, we did very few things on video conferencing. So I landed the job, I landed in LA, and I still have my connection with Pac-12 Networks, and I still have my love for doing live broadcasting. So the great part about that is I didn't have to just completely sever my connections when I came here. I'm actually able to use my connections to now help my students get their foot in the door. And it turns out there are so many opportunities in live TV. I know a lot of people who, think about joining the film business, always think about being a producer, writer, director, or editor, but there are so many other jobs out there, whether it's from movie marketing and making trailers to live broadcasting in sports. There's just a ton of opportunity. And the great part about LACC is our students are able to get a really great hands-on experience right in their very first semester. You don't have to wait until your senior year or your fourth year to get your hands on equipment. I teach in a multi-camera studio that was just redone about 3 years ago. So it's state of the art, all hands-on equipment. Whatever students learn in my class, they can apply directly to going right into the field. And we really are a great pipeline. We have a ton of great alumni who've come out of our program, Academy Award winners and nominees, Emmy winners, and they're so willing to give back, especially with their time and their mentorship. So I've really taken advantage of that and continued building these connections and pipelines for our students. So that's my origin story. It started back in high school when I thought I wanted to be a nurse. And here I am many years later, loving live broadcast, loving being a teacher in live broadcast and helping our students get their foot in the door.
Thanks so much, Jen. Well, you know what? All of you are it's exciting. I love hearing the stories. I think it's such a big part. And one thing that stuck out with me is, have you ever thought about doing something you love? That question is a big one. Because many times, and especially I know I'm someone who's first generation college going, it was very much about find a job that's safe that you'll be employed with, not about just dream big and go for it. So I'm very happy with what I do today. But like with that, I could see that being like a gut punch of like, aha. But thank you for all your stories. A lot of really good things. Some of you have touched on this, upon this, but I'd just like to get into it a little bit more and see if you have anything else to add. Jen, if we could kick off with you, and just about education and training, what's required, when it comes to, I think you talked about production, or there's a couple jobs in there that I heard, so forgive me for not being clear with that. I'll let you take it away.
No, that's okay. Actually, in our program, we have two separate disciplines. There's a cinema discipline and television. Cinema focuses on teaching students how to make feature films, everything from writing a script, breaking down the budget, learning how to cast, and then actually producing that script, shooting it, editing it, and bringing that script to the screen. In the television side of our program, we focus on teaching students how to operate multi-camera equipment. So for example, whenever you watch a live sporting event or talk shows, late night talk shows, news, all of those programs are edited live, changing between the camera angles while you're watching the show. So in our program, it's a really great place where you can get hands-on education and learn the ropes. Now, a lot of people in Hollywood and in TV will tell you that you don't need to get a degree to get into Hollywood, and that's absolutely true. A lot of our students end up getting what's called a certificate or a certificate of achievement, where they really just focus on specifically the cinema and TV classes, get the hands-on training, and hit the ground trying to hustle for a job. That being said, my bachelor's and my master's degree have never let me down. Every time I've applied for a job, I found that they have helped me in more ways than it has ever held me back. So I highly encourage you, if you're thinking about going the community college route, to look into transfer programs where you could spend your first 2 years at a community college, then transfer over to CSUN or CSULA or one of the larger schools, because it's not just about the education and training you get, it's about meeting your team. I mean, the people that I've met and the students that I see meet each other in our program are still working together to this day. And many of them have open production companies together. And this team and this network that you're building is really going to be an essential step in making it to wherever you want to go. So hands-on training is super important. Making sure that you understand that there is not one set path, but you need to start networking. You need to start creating a portfolio of your work, building up yourself and being able to sell yourself for these jobs. So that's the other thing that's really important in our field, is that you have to be able to tell people what your dreams are, what you want to be. People are going to ask, and a lot of times they genuinely want to know. And just being able to have that conversation, you never know who you're going to meet, who's going to actually have a good connection for you or help you get your foot in the door. And I think those are the most important things. And in addition to that, internships, making sure that when you're in maybe your last year or second to last year of either your program, that you're really thinking about getting out there and trying to get your foot into the door for companies and working for low pay or sometimes for no pay for college credit instead. Because when it comes to shopping your resume around and trying to get a job, a lot of employers are looking for, are you dependable? Are you hireable? Do people like working with you? And showing that you can keep an internship for 6 months is really important to, back that up.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We'll kick it off next with you, Mark.
Yeah, there's a lot of the things that Jen was saying are true of animation too. You don't have to have a degree to do animation. There are a lot of the bigger studios do like to see that you have at least a bachelor's degree, but it's your portfolio that gets you a job, and you're showing that you can actually do the work. So. Okay, so what's required? Yeah, I think getting a liberal arts education is really important, just because it's not just about being able to do a trade. It's also about being well-rounded and knowing something about, philosophy and science, and, that kind of background does actually make a big difference and makes you more well-rounded with whatever you want to do. So looking at certificate programs, I think can be okay, but I think the best thing, just having a more, well-rounded educational experience and just being more satisfied. I really think getting that liberal arts education is like a really good thing. I was telling you guys earlier too, is that you can start, there's online education, there's all kinds of resources out there. So you can start doing this stuff now, but even before you go to school, or even if you're in junior high school. And the reason I bring that up is there's two parts to starting right now. One, you find out whether you do really like it. Sometimes people have this idea of that they want to do storyboards, but they don't really know what it entails. But you find out like what you like, you find out what you're good at. You can always build your skills up, but you find out where your strengths are. And then there's the 20,000 hour thing, where you need to put in the time to really learn something well. Even the Beatles and Bill Gates, the Malcolm Gladwell book talks about how all these people that have had these really extraordinary careers all put in that time, one way or the other. They put that time in to become an expert. So starting now and not waiting for a class or for permission, you can start playing around with this stuff and seeing where, you know, what you're good at. You can start, if you're interested in games, you can download Unity or Unreal. It's free. Like I'm saying, you know, when I was starting out, nothing was free. It was all super expensive and hard to get to and restricted. Now you can download this onto the computer you're using right now and start playing around with building mods and, you know, getting involved with, different communities. The networking that Jen was talking about too was really important. It makes such a difference. I didn't know anybody in the industry. Like I said, I didn't really think that it was possible because of where I grew up. It's a lot easier to make those connections now with all the social networking, like LinkedIn and places where you can go and talk to people or meet people and ask questions. If somebody's doing something that you want to do, it's okay to reach out to them and see, you know, hey, I'm working on this. Could I get some feedback on it? People do like to give back. You know, if you're, you know, you want to definitely like be professional and, you know, about the way you know, reach out to people. You want to be thoughtful about it, but you know, there are all kinds of opportunities like that. There's organizations that you guys can join too as students to start getting involved with things, especially here in LA. There's the CTN Expo every year, and they've been doing a lot of reaching out to high schools and you know, providing, you know, workshops and, you know, things that you can get involved in. There's some really good training online that just wasn't available before. So you can get into using the kinds of software and skills that you would actually be doing, and getting a chance to kind of, you know, see what you like doing by doing some projects, or, you know, doing a short film, you know, take on some small thing and see. Am I answering what else? Educational background? Yeah. So, you know, and there's a lot of programs out there. I think, you know, when you're looking at where you want to go, I think look at the kind of student work that's being done at the place, look at the people that are teaching to kind of see, you know, if they kind of line up with what you know, are looking to do. And I think if I were starting today, I probably would look at like games, mobile apps, as a way to break in. There's this idea of getting a job at Pixar isn't just, you know, it's very unusual to get into a studio right out of school or right away. And usually if you do, you're probably over your head. So getting in and, you know, learning how the pipeline works, you know, there's all kinds of jobs too. You think you want to be a character designer or storyboard artist. There's only a handful of people that do like character design, for example, but there's a lot of people that design props or do backgrounds. There's a lot of people that do texture painting. You know, there's all kinds of different jobs, and you seeing it as a way to get in and then work your way into a position that you want to get into is really, you know, a lot more successful. You do need to kind of, you know, like in the mafia, make your bones, right? You put your time in, like learning the skills so that you can then start, you know, like working your way into what you want. I didn't get hired as a character animator right away. I had to work my way into it. So I worked as a generalist, and most of the time, you know, especially with animation and games, you're working in a small studio and then you work your way into the bigger studios. And it gives you time to build up your skills, but also to build up that portfolio, because that's what you're getting hired to. That portfolio is everything. Jesus, are you raising your hands for me, or what was that?
He sent a question just saying, what are some apps to make games? But I think we'll save that because I want to get time in for Katie, and we've got a couple more questions. So if you put the questions in the chat, I've got them all written down, and I'll make sure that we get those that information. And if it's any resources that can be emailed out, I'll collect that with the panelists and send a joint email at the end. But thank you.
Just Nicole, can I send a couple links to, was it Brando?
Yes.
Can he post them? Because I have some stuff open on my computer, but I can do, you know, so if people want to look through things, I can post some of that stuff while we're talking, if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah, great. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you. All right, Katie, let's jump into education and training. Thank you.
I'm going to vibe off of Mark of what he was saying. Like when I still look back on education and training, I think there's so many amazing resources out there for fashion design, such as woolmark.com or cottoninc.com that really wants to help people excel in their careers. And with that said, within fashion design and in specifically in knitwear design, what I do, it's really interesting to see these free online courses that are just there for you. And they want to send you information and they want to give you the tools and all the resources to go get there. So that's what I've been vibing on lately. And I've been telling all of my, my team members and anyone who wants to understand it, just look out for it. It's there. But in regards to really what I did for my career path was I knew I wanted to go to FIT. I was taking Saturday classes when I was a junior and a senior in high school. And I just took the train into the New York City and took classes. I wanted to understand what was out there for me. And with that said, I understood that maybe I wanted to do a business career. Maybe I wanted to do a design career. But it was the menswear design is what I really, really focused on and what really grabbed me. It was somewhat of a position or a realization that it was special, and I knew that I had a knack for it. So I always took into consideration what is there for me and what I can do. So I'm constantly going, it's not even education and training, just like in a traditional sense, it's education and training on a global sense. What's out there for me that I can learn from, like a business of fashion website or a Vogue business website or something that I can take in and understand a little bit more than what I did in college. And I'll take that to, every day I look at my trade journals and what's going on and in the industry. But I'll always remember what I knew back in college was the traditional tailoring techniques and how I applied them to modern menswear. And I also have a little bit of a degree in women's wear as well. So I kind of just flexed it in a way, but ultimately learning from the Italian tailors and understanding the craft and somewhat of like an artisanal stance of how you're going to create something always resonated with me. And when I seek inspiration and when I'm out and about, I always go back to my education. I'm like, what did they influence me at? And I always took it forward and went to the museums and went to the beautiful like vintage groups, and I loved it, and I still do that to this day. So I mean, with that said, it's just so amazing just to be here and sharing it with you guys.
Thank you so much, Katie. So yeah, I hear from pretty much everyone, it makes a difference in terms of getting some of the basics in education, that there's programs out there that you can find at the college level, community college level, that will let you get that application, that real life background information and real life experience. And then just looking out there, reaching out to experts in the field through a variety of professional groups, student groups, events, lots of things out there. Reality check. We've already at the 5:39, so I want to get through this. We've got 2 more questions and then an opportunity for questions from the students. Describe a typical day of what you do in hours and in your environment. If you're in the industry of fashion or animation or TV, what does it look like on the job for you today, or for someone that would be new in the field? What would be the difference? And we'll kick this off with Mark.
So, it kind of depends on what you're doing. If you're working on a game or working on a feature film, feature films take a lot longer. So, they always ramp towards the end of the production. You're always going to be putting in long hours. If you're working in TV and commercials, it's a lot shorter time frame for your project, but you can put in really long hours, especially when you're starting out, because you're doing some of those kind of starting jobs. When you start getting into more supervisor, you're still putting long hours. Just it's not something that you do if you really need to love doing it, right? It's not something that you do just for the money, or you do, it really has to be something that you have to desire. Like because it's not easy. It's very competitive, but incredibly rewarding. The other thing that, I'm not sure if this touches on, but I just before I forget, you're going to be changing what you do so much faster now. Your career evolves and changes, and you're going to be shifting. So being open to that and willing to kind of see how you can fit in, and being willing, you're always going to be, you have to love learning things, because you're going to always be, having to shift and bob and change direction to make sure that you kind of get in the right place. The other part of, working as an animator, every production, you have to prove yourself again most of the time. I mean, there's some cases where that's not true, but you go to a new place, you go to, you get in a position of responsibility, you're always having to prove yourself. So you have to be okay with that kind of stuff also. And I say that, but there's also, games and mobile apps, and there's different types of jobs now. So it kind of depends on, what, you can be an animator in all kinds of different industries now. So it really depends on the industry and finding a fit that kind of makes sense for you. Did that answer what you're asking?
Totally. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. And when you think of animation, I think I used to think of just cartoons and some movies, but now you're right. You look at these video games, and they're definitely not the Pong I used to play. they're just so beautiful with the animation. I know I date myself. A lot of people have no clue what Pong is. But those of you that do, you know what I'm talking about. To go quickly through these, the other panelists get a shot so we get to our question, and we have kids pouring questions in. So Katie, if you can jump with this question, please. The reality check of fashion.
Oh my gosh, I love a typical fashion day. Typical fashion day is you wake up, you submerge yourself in just information. You want to know what's going on in the Paris markets. You want to know what's going on in Copenhagen. You want to know what's going on in New York, especially since we're in LA. And I love it. I go that, I do that. I understand all my trade journals. I have fittings for 3 hours sometimes. A typical day, it will be proto fittings. It'll be
what is a fitting, Katie?
Oh, a fitting is when you have an actual prototype that you've designed. After you design your prototype, you have the proto comes in, and then you have a proto fitting. And with that said, you have a fit model who is your standard fit model type, and you fit your garments on him. And it's remarkable because you come up with consistencies, and you come up with styles that that are going to be relevant and incremental to the business. And with that said, fall 22 market was just last week or a couple weeks ago, and the fittings, we really did a great job on that. Trying to get another tip. We're picking color, we're naming colors, we're organizing the deck for what we're going to present for the next season. And it's intense, but it's all about being there, being present, and being intuitive of what you want to design for the next season, meaning the next season, which is a year in advance.
I think I muted myself and talked. Jen, will you kick it off with this question, please? Reality check.
Sure. I'm going to skip the first one because nobody wants to hear how many emails a department chair answers every day, and tell you what a typical day of a PA would look like. PA stands for production assistant, and that's pretty much the entry-level job that's going to help you get to wherever you're going next, whether it's an office PA, a set PA, post-production PA. If you're a set PA, you are the first one on the scene. If your call time is 7 a.m., you need to be there by 6:45. You're going to help unload the truck, make sure whatever is available for you to assist with gets done. It might not be glamorous work. You might be doing coffee runs, lunch runs, babysitting the craft services table. You might end up being a COVID safety compliance officer, where you're making sure everybody has their masks on, they're completing their testing for the day. And it's really a job where you need to be a yes person and you help out however is asked of you. There's also some downtime. And the best part about downtime is that's where you get to observe on the job. And you're right there on the set watching the programs happen or watching the live sporting event happen. And oftentimes during downtime, this is when you're going to strike up the conversations and people are going to ask, oh, what are you interested in? What do you want to do here? And that's where you get to talk a little bit about your dreams and your goals and make those connections. And then you stay the whole day. If you're a PA, you should be looking at 10, 12-hour days. If you're in feature film production, those 12-hour days might stretch to 14 or 15-hour days. So they're really long days. You got to wear comfortable shoes. A lot of times you need to make sure you have your grip belt with a Sharpie, some grip tape, and some gloves, and that you feel capable and confident to help out however it's needed, whether it's driving a 15-passenger van to go pick up talent, booking logistics if you're an office PA, making sure you understand spreadsheets, being a whiz at the Google Suite is really important as well. So production assistants really get a chance to get their hands on set and kind of do anything and everything that's asked of you.
Thank you. 1 second, please. All right. In terms of what are you or the industry looking for when hiring a new candidate? And we've got about 15 minutes left. So if you could kind of cut it short so we have time for questions, but pretty much the basics. You have someone, if you're in fashion, someone, if you're in production, if you're in animation, that beginning person, what characteristics or what do they have to display that would make them stand out for you to hire them over everybody else? Please.
You go ahead, Jen, or I'll take it from here. So basically, you got to have the passion. You got to have a personality too. You got to have the basic like understanding of process, like what it is, how to proceed with a daily like schedule. You got to understand schedules. You have to understand people management. It's like managing up, managing around, managing yourself. So if fashion is really interesting, it's like leave your ego at the door and just have a good time, but make sure you know process and make sure you're on top of your stuff.
Thank you. I see Jen nodding. You want to add to that, please?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I think it's really helpful to be a problem solver. Don't be someone who's constantly bringing problems, but bring solutions. Be likable. Be somebody that people enjoy being around. And honestly, the industry is looking for somebody who knows the basics. So understanding how to wrap cable properly, knowing terminology, and really being observant. I remember when I was a PA, I always brought a notebook. So I was always writing things down, whether it was the people I met that day, a new piece of equipment I've never heard of, so I could go research it later. And I knew that if I was writing in my notebook, I didn't look like I was on my phone texting or scrolling through Instagram. And I still have that notebook till this day. So just always learning on the job, being observant, and understanding your place in the pecking order, knowing that there is a time to ask questions, but it's not all the time. So those are my top tips.
Thank you. Anything to add, Mark?
No, actually, Jen, you took all of mine because that actually was really, really good. But I think that having enthusiasm is super important. Being somebody that, is anticipating, I think that's one of the biggest things. It's a very cooperative, industry. You're having to work with other people, pick up other people's work and pass it on. So being able to communicate well is really important. One of the things the studios talk about, their biggest problem with people when they come in is that they're afraid to talk, or they, so they don't speak up when they need to, or they don't communicate when they're having an issue. Like, it's okay if you need to work something out, but let people know what's going on is a lot better than, like suffering quietly. And the other side of it too, though, is like, if you're always asking questions, that can be, you got to figure out how to kind of fit in with the environment. And it's always doable, but if you going back, be enthusiastic, right? People, be somebody that people want to work with, and you're trying to figure out like how to get things done instead of complaining, any of that kind of stuff. And that thing you were saying about on your phone, I've actually had studios, like, students will think they did great at a company, and the report I get back is that they were always on their phone. They don't realize people are watching, that kind of thing. So, and also that what you were saying about writing things down, like, instead of playing video games or watching movies, learn, some software that that company needs or learn their pipeline or their database so that when something does come up, you can be more useful. Makes a big difference.
Great advice. Great advice. Thank you all. In terms of questions, I've got some questions that have come in the chat, and if you have any more that pop up, please just shout, or not shout, put it in the chat. Put in the chat so we can make it all go together. I have for Mark, what animation have you worked on, and is it easy with animation now since there's so much technology? Is it easy to create the characters?
It's one of those things that you're, as computers get more complicated, animation gets more complicated. So it's not necessarily easier, and things are changing. There's all kinds of AI stuff. During my time working, which is, like 30 years, like I was saying, I started in 1990. There's complete departments that have disappeared, right? They used to have ink and paint departments, or they'd have a cleanup department, and they've started, either because they're trying to save money or whatever, or the technology comes in, but people that had been working for 40, 50 years, that department doesn't exist anymore. So that's what I was talking about too, about like just trying to anticipate and always trying to see how you can fit in and make yourself valuable. Because there, so is it easier? Yeah, right now I have a friend that's working on a game AI that will let you take the lip sync and change it to different languages. So that's something that an animator would be doing, but because you're doing the same kind of choices and the same approach to it, usually you can come up with AI to do that kind of thing. So that's something that used to have animators with their hands on it. Now they don't have to. And Nicole, let me know if I can talk for a long time, so I don't want to, I don't want to wait. I want to make sure we have time for other people.
It's good. Let me jump around to some questions and we'll come back to that. And because one of the things the questions was talking about, technology available, apps. If I wanted to learn about how to make animation for apps, what technology is out there. And I think, following this up with a message to all, and I don't know if Brando was able to post anything, but directly following this, I can put an email out to everyone with all of the resources, and Mark shared that his wife and him have a web page with these resources. So I don't want to get in the weeds of that quite yet. I'm also going to send information out on the 2 programs that Ms. Vaughn is a part of, with information, because a lot of our students take dual enrollment classes through high school, and maybe an opportunity to work on some certificated programs through that. That might be awesome. And then a question for all of you, we're just kind of, what do you put or add in a portfolio?
Your best work. It might start off with any work you got, but as you continue to get more and more pieces, you might want to slim down some of your very beginning projects and really just showcase your best pieces. And now creating websites is so easy. I mean, with Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, Tumblr, you can drag and drop and make your own website in an afternoon. So it's great to showcase your work. It's also great to have a really brief bio, because it's cool to know what makes you uniquely you. And that's another thing that people are looking for when they're hiring is, why should I hire this person? What would make them a great asset to my team? And it's not necessarily what you can produce, but who is the person that's producing it. And as you get more and more work gathered, having a demo reel that is just the snippets of your best work is important. But in my department in cinema and TV, it's also important to show story. You understand how to tell a story, and it's not just about flashy editing techniques or making cool TikToks, but you really know how to develop characters, have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You understand plot. So those are the type of things I like to see on a strong portfolio.
Thank you, Jen. I've got one in terms of portfolios for Katie and Mark. Katie, I've also got something with regards to when you first started in men's fashion design. How did you feel if it was hard to manage? Was it hard to manage getting in the field? I'm not quite sure if there's anything else.
You know what, Nicole, it wasn't at all hard for me. I remember back in the day, it was easy for me. It felt natural for me to just work with men's clothing, as easy as it was with women's. and just working with my, my friends in at school, or just working with them in general. It was a lovely experience.
Excellent. And I think a lot of what you all are talking about is you have to be able to manage many pieces. You have to be a good time management person, multitasker, clear communicator. I think I heard from all of you. We've got a question for Jen. How would I get started on working on my own portfolio?
Oh, great. Well, first thing you need is to get your hands on a camera or one of these bad boys and start shooting. Well, we teach a class called Cinema 2. We actually teach it in dual enrollment in our high schools as well. And it's a beginning film production class where right away you get your hands on the camera, tripod, stabilizers, mic, lights, and you learn the basics of shot techniques, visual composition, and how to tell stories. So the awesome thing is, like, these days, there's really nothing holding you back from getting started. All you need is a couple friends who are willing to be in front of the camera for you, or just be creative and think outside the box, because these days people are creating work on their own in so many different ways. So if you're interested in joining Cinema 2, you'll get my email from Nicole. And I just wanted to let you know that please reach out with any questions. It's not a bother. My favorite part is answering student questions when they come across my email. So I'm happy to go into more depth if anybody would like to know about how you can get a hands-on start at LACC.
Awesome. And one thing I want to note, I have some questions with regards to how do I learn 2D animation? I've wanted to take classes. Well, you could speak with our presenters right now, but also all of the school and college counselors work with, at the high school level, are able to put you in beginning animation classes. You just would need to look in the course catalog or speak with the counselor. I'll also send you a link to look at LACCD's course offerings, and you just have to ask. And as long as you're doing well in your courses in high school, meaning you have a C or higher in your classes, and you're willing to either take it online or get to that institution and you have transportation to get there, you can take these classes. But note that they are college level classes. You have to take them seriously. The grades will follow you forever. They don't just say, "Oh, I don't like this course, I'm going to stop going." You're considered a college student, so it's a big responsibility. But bottom line, I think with what Mark, Jen, and Katie talked about, people want to help. People want you to succeed and be successful. So if you're willing to speak up and advocate for yourself, ask questions, be a problem solver. So yes, ask questions, but I always talk about Google slap. If you can Google it and it's like the top 2 sites, you shouldn't really need to ask anybody. You should kind of look for it first before asking. But I think there's a lot of great information here.
Nicole, can I just real quick? The Animation Guild has some free. They're not free, but they have classes for like figure drawing, and it's the instructors that like we had at the studios, like Glenn Filippo. There's some really amazing instructors, and it's like $80-100 for 10 sessions kind of thing. So you can do that as a student. You don't have to be a member. If the class doesn't fill up, you can join. So the Animation Guild is here in LA, and that's something that you guys can look into taking in addition. And those dual enrollment classes that Jen, that kind of stuff is really great. And there are some other colleges that have some dual enrollment, but it kind of depends on their agreement with the high schools. And the last thing, sorry, is before and I want to make sure I have something that bridges with Katie. I was talking to one of the students that is working in CG modeling, and she's working. When I talked to her a few months ago, she was working on Black Adam, the Warner Shazam sequel, and they're actually doing the costumes in 3D. And then because they have these like form-fitting things, they scan them, and then the form-fitting things they're actually making in 3D. So she's not making CG stuff that's going to be on effect. She's actually making the 3D print stuff that's going to go there. So there's a lot of crossover in these these different things now. Anyways, I thought that might lead into something you were going to talk about, Katie.
That's so cool.
Without a doubt, I love that aspect of it, and we're just touching on it. And I think it's only going to be more prevalent in our industry, like not necessarily for the company that I work for, but what I'm really into, and that technology and the fusion of how
all life will fade eventually.
Sorry about that. I had to mute someone. One more question. I got a question for Mark. How can I get started in animation in middle school? You mentioned the Animation Guild courses. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that's more middle school focused?
You can do, I mean, you could do that in middle school even. I mean, just look into it. But online, there's so many resources. So I pasted a bunch of stuff to Brando, and I don't know if you guys can, you know, the other thing is getting online and some of the resources like LinkedIn can be good, not to try to get a job, but to like do research about companies to see what's out there. And then go to Indeed. It's the biggest job site right now. Look up what those jobs are, because they're going to post. You'll see what jobs are out there. You'll learn about the companies, but you also see what they're looking for. And then another one is IMDb. So those are some research things. IMDb is Internet Movie Database. So you can also, whenever you're talking to people, look them up to see what, you know, companies they've or what shows they've worked on or what they've been doing. If they've worked on TV or even in games now, I think they have stuff for that. And then, okay, so if you're interested, download something like Unity, download Maya. Maya is basically like the 3D pencil for everything that we do. Adobe Photoshop products Adobe products like Photoshop or After Effects, like those are things that you can get and work on your computer now. And I would say, instead of just trying to do some tutorials, try to do something where you create a robot and maybe you try to composite it into a background. It's ambitious and it's probably going to look horrible, but that's why you're trying to figure things out. And so you don't have to take a class or have somebody tell you can do things. Start playing around with this stuff. A lot of it's free, and if it's not free, there's some version of it that's free. And there's so much stuff like on YouTube now. If you want to go into directing, you can see people's YouTube channels and see what they they'll have advice about, like getting into whatever you want to do, and then look them up on IMDb and see if they really know what they're talking about. Like see if they've really worked on things or if they're just an influencer or whatever. But look people up, do the research. Join groups like on LinkedIn. They have groups that you can join. So if you're interested in visual effects, you can join a group that talks about that, right? And it's professionals that are there. And so if you have a question or you need pointing to something, and like Nicole was saying too, if you can look it up on Google, probably don't ask it, but sit back and listen on some of these groups. You're going to learn a lot. Okay. Anyway, that's it. Yeah. Okay. Good.
And just so we know, just to be respectful of everyone's time, it's 6:03. And I just want to say again, thank you, Mark, Jen, and Katie. You have lives, you work, families, stuff, and you made time for PUC school students. I'm beyond thankful for your time and your graciousness of sharing with everybody. Students, if you would please fill out, I'm gonna put together an email, post-meeting email, to share some of these resources with you, and also share our post-meeting survey. I ask that you take 2 minutes to complete it. I'll be sending that out at the latest by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. And I just want to say, I hope you have a great evening. And next week, our topic is hospitality, restaurants, and tourism. I mean, we live in LA, people. We need some of you to just at least check it out. But thank you, Mark. Thank you, Katie. And thank you, Jan. It's been amazing. And we so appreciate everything that you've had to share today.
You're very welcome. And one final plug, if you do sign up for Cinema 2 through dual enrollment, we offer the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite for free for 6 months. So you can get your hands on right away and just keep on plugging away and start building your portfolio from day one.
Beautiful. That's a great tip.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. Jen, Mark, Nicole, everyone. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you guys. Take care.
Thank you, Mark. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you have any questions for me or anything you want to comment, you can come off mute. I'll be in here for like another minute or so. If not, I hope you have a great night. Thank you so much for being here. Great to have you all. I hope we see you at next week's Career Convo. When it comes to the Career Convo webinar recordings, we're going to be uploading it to the PUC Schools YouTube site. That will take place. I'm not sure the date. I'm not in charge of the PUC YouTube site, but we'll make sure it gets uploaded. Any other questions? I'm going to be signing off. We're at the 6:05 mark. Thank you for being here. And again, my name's Nicole Murphy, n.murphy@pucnational.org. If you have any questions, please reach out. We hope to see you next week.
All life will fade eventually.